The laugh came before the toast. My father stood at the head of the Thanksgiving table, crystal glass raised, wearing that smug smile he saved for moments designed to humiliate people. My brothers already looked nervous. My mother stared down at her plate like she always did when he started performing. To the kids who made something of themselves, he announced loudly, eyes locking onto me, and didn't end up cleaning toilets for a living. The room exploded with uncomfortable laughter, not because it was funny, because nobody there ever knew how to stop him. I kept my face still. That part took practice. Years of it. My younger sister whispered, "Dad," under her breath, but he ignored her. He took a sip like he'd delivered the line of the night. I was 26 then, working overnight shifts as a janitor in a downtown office building while finishing business classes during the day. Nobody at that table knew I'd been sleeping inside my car 3 nights a week to keep tuition paid. Nobody asked. I stood quietly, folded my napkin, grabbed my coat, and walked out into the freezing rain. Behind me, my father shouted one last thing. "Don't forget your mop, Savannah." I never went back home after that night. I spent my first winter after Thanksgiving inside a parking garage 2 blocks from campus. The security guard on night rotation knew I slept there sometimes. He never reported me. Around 3 in the morning, he'd leave stale coffee beside the stairwell door, without saying a word. Pride kept me from thanking him properly. My janitor job started at 6 each evening inside a towering finance building downtown. Marble floors, glass elevators, executives who avoided eye contact while dropping trash beside bins already inches from their shoes. I noticed everything. People reveal themselves when they believe you're invisible. One executive screamed at assistants until they cried. Another secretly drank vodka from a silver water bottle before lunch. One woman stayed later than everyone else every night, sitting alone in conference rooms after meetings ended, staring at spreadsheets like her life depended on them. Her name was Evelyn Mercer, CEO. While cleaning her office one night, I found her asleep at her desk, heels kicked off, mascara smudged beneath exhausted eyes. Papers covered every surface. Bankruptcy projections sat open beside legal notices. She woke suddenly when I emptied the trash. Instead of apologizing, she looked directly at my employee badge and asked, "Savannah, why are you reading my financial reports?" Then she smiled slowly, like she already knew the answer before I spoke. Most people hear "janitor" and stop listening. Evelyn didn't. She leaned back in her chair while I explained why her company was bleeding money. The words came out carefully at first, then faster once I realized she actually understood what I was saying. 3 regional offices were draining cash. Vendor contracts were inflated. Middle managers kept approving duplicate spending because nobody audited internal purchasing anymore. She watched me for 10 straight minutes, without interrupting once. When I finished, she asked where I learned corporate restructuring. I laughed before I could stop myself. Between mopping conference rooms and sleeping in parking garages. She didn't smile. The next evening, security escorted me upstairs instead of downstairs. Evelyn had ordered dinner for 2 inside the executive boardroom. Real food. Cloth napkins. My hands almost shook touching them. She slid a stack of reports across the table. "Tell me what everyone else missed." For 3 hours, I did. Weeks passed like that. Quiet meetings after my shift. Financial models scribbled onto cleaning supply receipts. Strategies built between midnight and sunrise while the rest of the city slept. Then one Monday morning, every employee inside Mercer Financial received the same email. The CEO had appointed a new operations consultant. My father called 20 minutes later after seeing my company photo online. He sounded furious, not proud. "You embarrassed this family." That was the first thing my father said after barging into my tiny apartment without knocking. Not "congratulations." Not "how are you?" He paced across the room like I'd committed fraud instead of earning an opportunity. His expensive shoes scraped against warped wooden floors while he stared at the second-hand furniture, searching for proof I still belonged beneath him. "You clean floors," he snapped. "Now suddenly you're advising executives?" I stayed seated at the kitchen table, finishing my coffee slowly. That company's desperate if they're hiring janitors. The insult would have destroyed me years earlier. Now it just sounded small. I slid a folder across the table. Inside were projected savings from the restructuring plan Evelyn approved the night before. Millions in recoverable losses highlighted neatly in blue ink. He barely glanced at it, because understanding it meant admitting I wasn't stupid. His face tightened when he noticed the Mercer Financial logo printed across every page. "You think rich people respect you?" he asked quietly. "People like them never let people like us inside." I almost answered. Then I remembered he never considered me part of us anyway. Before leaving, he stopped beside the door and delivered the sentence that stayed buried inside my chest for years afterward. "You'll always be the kid cleaning up after everyone else, Savannah." 3 months later, Mercer Financial announced record profits. Success changed my address before it changed my habits. I still arrived early, still carried spare pens inside my pocket like they were survival tools, still thanked receptionists by name while executives ignored them walking past. Evelyn noticed all of it. "That's why people trust you," she told me one evening after shareholder dinner. "You remember what it feels like to be overlooked." By then, Mercer Financial had expanded into 3 new markets. My restructuring plan became mandatory training material for every regional director. Articles started calling me the turnaround architect. My father clipped every interview, not to celebrate me, to criticize me. My sister secretly mailed me one of the newspaper copies after he circled my photograph with red ink and wrote, "Still a janitor inside." I kept it anyway, not out of pain, out of memory. The following winter, Evelyn offered me an executive partnership during a private meeting overlooking the city skyline. Equity shares, a permanent board seat, more money than anyone in my family had ever touched. I accepted calmly. Then my phone buzzed across the conference table. "Dad." I ignored the first call, then the second, then the third. Finally, voicemail arrived. His voice sounded older somehow, smaller. "Savannah," he muttered quietly, "I think I need your help this time." I listened to the voicemail twice before calling back, not because I missed him, because fear sounded unnatural in his voice. My father had spent my entire life treating vulnerability like weakness. Even after surgeries, layoffs, funerals, he always spoke like a man performing strength for an invisible audience. This time, the performance was gone. I met him the next morning inside a diner near the freeway. He looked thinner than I remembered. Gray spread unevenly through his beard. His hands trembled slightly, lifting the coffee cup. For a moment, I almost forgot who he'd been to me. Then he spoke. "The construction company folded," he admitted carefully. "New ownership came in. Cut senior staff first." I nodded once, and his jaw tightened. "I need work." There it was. No apology attached. No acknowledgement of years spent humiliating me. Just expectation wrapped inside discomfort. I stirred my tea quietly while he explained overdue bills, shrinking savings, mortgage threats. The same man who once mocked my uniform now described cleaning jobs as honest work when discussing temporary employment options. The irony nearly made me laugh. Finally, he slid a wrinkled resume across the table toward me. "I heard Mercer's hiring operations managers." I looked down at the paper, then back at him. Very softly, I asked the question he never expected to hear. "Why would people like us belong there?" My father froze the second the words left my mouth. Not angry, not defensive, just exposed. For the first time in my life, he looked like a man hearing himself clearly. The silence between us stretched painfully while waitresses moved around our booth carrying plates nobody touched. His eyes dropped toward the resume sitting beside my untouched tea. "I was hard on you," he muttered finally. The sentence sounded unfamiliar coming from him, like he'd borrowed it from somebody kinder. I waited, but that was all he had. No real apology. No ownership of the years he spent reducing me into punchlines at family dinners. No acknowledgement of the nights I slept freezing inside my car while he toasted my siblings for becoming successful. Just, "I was hard on you." I leaned back slowly. "You taught me something valuable," I said calmly. His face lifted slightly. How to survive without expecting kindness from anyone. That hurt him. I could see it immediately. He opened his mouth again, maybe searching for better words this time, but I stood before he could find them. Then I placed a business card beside his coffee cup. Not Mercer Financial. A janitorial staffing company. They're hiring overnight cleaners, I told him quietly. Benefits start after 90 days. His eyes burned with humiliation. Mine never left his face. My father never called me after the diner. My sister told me he stared at the janitorial company card for almost an hour before finally folding it into his wallet. He took the overnight cleaning job 3 weeks later at a medical office building across town. He never admitted where he worked. But people talk, especially in small families built around pride. The following Thanksgiving, my mother invited me carefully, like she expected rejection before finishing the sentence. I almost declined. Then I realized something. I wasn't afraid of that table anymore. When I arrived, the house felt quieter than I remembered. Smaller too. My father sat near the end of the table instead of the head. His shoulders looked heavier somehow. Dinner passed awkwardly until my nephew raised his glass innocently and asked who wanted to make the annual toast. Nobody spoke. Then my father stood slowly. His hands shook slightly around the glass. To Savannah, he said hoarsely. The hardest working person in this family. The room fell completely silent. He looked directly at me afterward. No performance left. No cruelty hiding behind humor. Just regret arriving far too late. I nodded once without smiling, because forgiveness and forgetting were never the same thing. Outside, snow covered the driveway quietly while the family ate in silence.